My name is Ebun Feyisetan. I'm a product manager, and I've been a product manager for a very few years. So I'm not a 10-year product manager professional like that. I started my journey quite recently, and I have been learning through my journey. And today, what we'll be doing essentially, we'll be discussing A/B testing and how we can drive conversion through A/B testing. Let me say first of all that, please, I'm going to be asking a couple of questions here and there. And if you could just raise up your hand, unmute your mic and say something in response, that would be great. Right now, I'm not sure if I'll be able to see someone's raising their hands, but if Favor could just help me out with that. And yeah. So first of all, I know that right now we have about 9 people here. And because we're like a small class, I think it'd be good to just go around everybody. Just tell me your name, what you do, your background, and probably your expectations from this class. So your name and what you do, your background, what industry you work in currently, and your expectations for this particular class. Okay, do we want to do that? Like, just go around like that? Let's start with the first person on the list. Let's start with Forbes. Do you want to go first, please?
Hi, Ebun.
Hi, Forbes. Hi, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. I'm new to the A/B testing, and so that's why I joined. Just diversified into product management.
Okay.
So currently, product manager for Fore by Africa Prudential.
Wow.
So yeah.
So what are your expectations from this class?
Yeah, I really want to know more about it, and that was where I joined. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Can we have the next person? I think we have Johnson Ishola. Do you want to go on, please? Just your name, what you do, what industry you work in currently, and what your expectations are for this class.
Hi, Ebun.
Hi.
Good evening. And good evening to everyone and everyone else. Yeah, so my name is Johnson Ishola, and I currently work as a growth product manager at a fintech and e-commerce B2B startup. So my expectation is to actually learn more about the A to B testing tools, basically, because it's easy for someone to like get lost, trying to identify the different tools that one can use. So what I would like to know more specifically is what are the best tools that one can actually use out there that suits the target audience that we have in this market, in the Nigerian market, basically. So that would be like my expectation for this.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Johnson. Can we have Khadija? Hi, Khadija. Do you want to go in next?
Yes, please, can you release me? Hello, good afternoon. My name is Khadija. Sorry, I'm actually in like a busy place. So I am a digital marketer and I work with a tech company currently. So I do a bit of A/B testing, especially when I need to run ads where I test for like different things which could help us like run ads and get the results we want. So my expectation from this class is to like learn how to do it better and look out for like other factors that could help make like A/B testing successful for us.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go on to the next person. I think the class is growing. So can we have Okoyemi next? Hi, Okoyemi.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Okay. So, a product manager with just a few years experience as well. I currently manage an in-life product, so I was really looking forward to this class. So it's one thing to have your product out there and also drive usage and conversion. So I want to this class and see how I can continually delight my users as well as drive conversion on the platform. So
great, thank you. I think we'll just take Toby and Toby, then we'll just start right off. Hi, Toby, do you want to go on next? Then Toby.
All right, that's fine. Hi everyone. So my name is Toby. I work as a product manager at a health insurance firm currently. And basically I've been working on some conversion optimization projects, right? And after doing some research, I realized that I'll have to do a design overhaul basically. So in the middle of all of that, and it came up that A/B testing would be basically a good way to validate some of my ideas. I haven't figured out how to do the A/B testing. I haven't even got to that stage of it yet, but basically just interested in learning more about it here and then seeing how I can basically apply it to my projects when I get back on it.
Thank you, Toby. Let's go with Toy, then we'll kick right off. Hi, Toy. Is Toy still there? Hi, Toy, are you there? Okay. All right then.
Okay, hi.
Hi. It's okay.
Yes, sorry. Okay, so I've been like a little distracted, right? So yeah, I'm so sorry. My name is Toy anyway. I work at Switch as a product manager. I'm also a co-founder at Treford. So basically just here to like see how things go, basically.
Okay. Thank you, Toy. I think one of the things that we'll do, because we're all in different spaces, different industries, I think one of the things that would be mutually beneficial would be when, everyone here, pitches in, gives examples of things that they have worked on, things that another person here could possibly benefit from. And then that'll be good. So during the course of this session, I'll be talking about A/B testing, what exactly A/B testing really is, the benefits of A/B testing, the metrics to pay attention to when you're A/B testing, some A/B testing tools that you could try out, case studies, and a bit of like the practice questions that we can all look at together, and of course a bit of subsections here and there that we'll cover as we go on. So like I said, please try and unmute your mic at some point. So please answer any question that might come up, right? So first of all, So what do you understand by the phrase A/B testing? I mean, I think a couple of people mentioned that they've heard about it, they've read about it before. Some other people said that it's completely new to them. But I don't know if anybody here can just let me know, when you see the phrase A/B testing, what comes to mind? What do you understand by A/B testing? Anybody?
So I'll go ahead and right.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Oh, okay, we'll go. Let's take Toby first, and we'll take Johnson. Yeah, so go on, please.
Right. So from my understanding, right, A/B testing is basically having two options and showing two different options to two different groups of people, and basically judging how they respond to certain tests that you give them.
Brilliant. Thank you, Toby. Johnson, do you want to go on now?
Yes. So I would say that A/B testing is more like you optimizing for improvement. Improvement could be in the form of conversion. So basically, you're trying to like test different run different things, maybe experiments across a particular cohort or something, and you're trying to see what is going to drive the most conversion or most improvement. So you are constantly like trying to test different, you're trying to break down a particular cohort or a particular thing right into different groups. So you're testing different things against the what's it called? There's a certain word for that. I can't remember what that word is. But basically, you're trying to optimize for improvement here by testing multiple things across boards, and you're trying to see what's the best thing that would improve. the metric basically. So that's why I understand by A/B testing.
Thank you, Johnson. And Johnson, if you could just keep your mic unmuted, because there are many times that the word conversion is used a lot, and sometimes I don't want to assume not everybody really translates what that word actually means. So Johnson, do you want to help us explain what that word conversion means to you?
All right. So what conversion means to me is basically now it actually depends. So I feel like it depends on the goal, right? So if
Awesome.
so if I want to like drive more traffic to a website, right, to a landing page perhaps, so conversion to me here would be how many, like, what's the traffic on the website against an ad that I sent, right? So in terms of conversion, I'll say what's the like traffic, what's the click-through rate, right, for the ad, right, and how are people like converting, which is basically how many users are landing on the website, and that's the traffic. So I would say like it depends on the goal ultimately, right? So I just give you a scenario there.
Yeah, thank you very much. So two things. Toby talked about how A/B testing has to do with like two user groups and how they're exposed to the same assets, and then see what the user behavior is, what direction they tend to. And then Johnson's talking about conversion, and conversion itself, like he said, it varies by the goal of the company. Conversion is really more like a completed a task that a company expects that a user would take or would follow. So, for example, like he mentioned, you have your email newsletter, for example, and there's a button that, for example, leads you to the landing page for the website, for example. Now, for me, for example, it could be that, okay, my conversion could be that user opening up that email and clicking on that, on that call to action button that leads the user to the landing page. So for me, for example, for that email newsletter, I might be measuring, what is the click-through rate for me? How many users are actually clicking, taking that action to actually click on that button, actually go to my website. So thank you very much, Johnson. There's this very, very funny, I think we've all seen it here, about this guy saying here that, he wasn't really cheating on her, really. It was more like A/B testing. Anyway, let's get right on to it. So A/B testing is essentially, it's an experiment that involves two or more variants of an asset, right? So you can have a case where you're testing two things, right, to determine, user behavior. It's testing of two or more variants of an asset, to use that at random. And the reason why the word random here is very, very important is because if, for example, you're a product manager and you're used to doing like UAT, for example, and internal testing, what happens there is that you're giving your users or a select group of people, you're giving them test scripts, of steps to follow, line items, things to test. And because the user is aware that they're testing, there's a possibility of some level of bias. But with the A/B testing, the user is completely unaware that they're actually being used, for a test. So it's completely random. The user is unaware, and because of that, you're more likely to get like real or tangible results about the actual behavior of that user. It also involves some level of statistical analysis, because when you run this kind of test, the end goal is to test that data that you have. So it involves some level of statistical analysis. And the idea is that with this data that you get, you're able to make like better business decisions, So I'll just run by that very quickly. Now, with A/B testing, there are so many words or many catchphrases that you might hear. You might hear about split testing, conversion rate optimization, multivariate testing, landing page optimization, digital optimization, online experiments, growth hacking, all of that. But the core of it really is that you're running tests. You're learning about the user behavior and you're using that, to make like tangible business decisions, right? Then I'll just move on that very quickly. Yeah. So I have this picture here, and I'm just wondering, can anybody here just tell me, when you see this picture, what comes to mind? It's like a story. Does anybody just take a look at this picture? What does it give? What comes to mind when you see this particular image? if anybody sees it, if anybody gets it, I'll be very, very wowed. Anybody?
Yes, Daniel and his friends in the Bible when someone give them wine and meat or something like that.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, that's actually spot on. So what I'm going to be doing here is that the whole, just like you have so many principles and theories that guide that are applicable in tech, many of these ideas honestly are things that have always existed from time immemorial, just that there was really no tag attached to those ideas, right? So in the case of A/B testing has always existed, In fact, all of us here at some point in our lives, in our day-to-day lives, we perform some kind of A/B testing without even realizing. So I'm going to just take us through an analysis of an A/B testing scenario that happened over 2,600 years ago. And by no means, this is not a religious teaching anyway. So please, it doesn't matter whether you're religious or not. I just want to just show you and explain basic principles that would really help open your mind to understand the A/B testing, what exactly the principles are, because honestly, we're all in different industries, and I can't exactly tell you. It's not a one size fits all. I can't tell you that you have to do this for your health insurance company, or you have to do this for fintech, because sometimes what is applicable for B is not exactly applicable for A. But if you understand the principles that guide it, can literally help you, in actually driving conversion. So I'll just like a bit of a story time. So anybody who knows this story know that about 600 BC, there are some guys, 4 boys in Babylon that, were shipped, to Babylon captivity. And then the king woke up one morning and he felt like, I want some young men that will actually join my team in the, well, I said team, that would join the palace, and that would, will sit with me on the table, they can rub minds with me, give me ideas. So I'm looking for men who are skillful, who have a level of wisdom, who can, who have, charisma and all of that. And they got these 4 Hebrew boys and they pulled them into the palace, right? So here the king had given this directive that this is what you're required to do. So he picked out a guy called Melza. So this is the guy called Melza, the one holding the tray of yummy food. And he tells him that, so Melza, I need to take all the boys that have been brought into the palace, and I need you to feed them with wine and meat, beef, pork, whatever, name it, for a period of time. And then once that is done, you bring them into the palace and begin to rule. Really. But because for those who know the story, because of the ethics and that were guiding these 4 Hebrew boys, Daniel, Meshach, Abednego, like that, they were like, nah, we're not going to do this with you, fam. Like, we don't know where that is from. We're not going to eat that, right? And because of that, what happened was that Melza got a bit scared, right? Melza got a bit scared, and he was like the king, like my boss, like the one I report to, the one that can have my head, says that you need to eat this. So he was scared that if he was going to introduce something different than they were used to, there was a possibility that things could go wrong. And if you think about the way it works in our workplaces, in our organizations, and in our business, sometimes our stakeholders are afraid to introduce something new because of the fear that something might break or it might not work, right? So he was afraid. He says here, I fear my Lord the King, who hath appointed your meat and drink. So there was that fear, because of that, introducing something that was different, right? And honestly, I think with agile, with companies who are fully agile, this is one of the things that that is really the hallmark of agile organizations: the openness and the willingness to accept change and run with change very quickly. Because when you're able to embrace change, you're able to know what works quickly, and you don't let me jump ahead of myself, but you're able to iterate quickly, fail fast, and make quick gains. However, but there was that fear, that was a holdback for him, So, and that is something that we also experience, in our businesses, right? Then Daniel, understanding that this guy had this fear, and of course his fear was actually very valid, because he was a stakeholder, but he had another stakeholder that he was reporting to, and if things went wrong, he was going to be on set. So what Daniel did in this case, Daniel said, he said something. He went to him and said, okay, you know what? I will help you. This is a decision that you need to make. I'm proposing that you take away the meat and the drink, right? I'm telling you that I do not want to eat this thing, right? But because you don't know what the outcome is going to be if I take this thing away, let me help you a bit, right? Let me give you data to work with that will inform your decision-making process, right? So he said, prove thy servant, right? I'm not preaching you guys. So he said, prove thy servant, I beseech thee, 10 days and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. So he was saying here that, you know what, okay, leave that aside. Let's work with data here, right? So he said, prove decisions with data. It's very easy, on our different products that we're working in. It's very easy to say, okay, just wake up one morning, I want to just change the CTA button on my website, for example, make it pink. Or you know what, I just want to make air out my website, or I want to, make some changes on my mobile application. And really, you don't really have any data to back up that decision. You just want to do it. But the thing about A/B testing is that if you go into A/B testing without a precise goal, there's tendency that you just have waste of time, waste of resources, and at the end of the day, it's why did we do this to begin with? So he was telling this guy Mills that I will give you data to work with. So he said, okay, let's try this. Let's have an experiment, just like Johnson said. Let's have this experiment that will span a specific period of time, 10 days. That's another very, very key element with A/B testing, right? You have a certain period of time that you want to run this test for, right? If you look specifically, he didn't say, let's run this thing for 3 hours or 4 hours. I mean, each industry and each circumstance differs definitely, and what might work for me might not work for you. But he gave ample time, right, to run this test so that, the data that they were going to be faced with was something they felt like they could believe that they could rely on. Because if, for example, you run this test, for example, for 1 day, for example, you might not be getting the optimal, your data might not be reliable enough, to help you with your decision-making process. So I say, okay, let's do this, for example, for 10 days. Let's give an example of somebody, for example, who feels that, they want to go on a diet, for example. One person thinks that, I want to go on a strictly low carbs diet. Another person says, I want to go on strictly no gym alone diet, for example, and say, okay, let's do this for a month or 3 months. If you were going to say, okay, let's do this for 1 day, guy, how much weight do you want to lose in 1 day? But expanded out, okay, let's do this for a certain period of time, Yeah. And then he said next that let us give them pause to eat. Okay, then let me move to the next page. So what I'm saying here, first of all, the goal is to be able to have data that you can make decisions, quality decisions with. Second thing is to have a set period of time that is reliable, that is realistic, that you can work with. Then the third one here is that now it says here that what Daniel did now, the third thing he did was that he introduced something new. So A/B testing, we have two parties. We have what we call the control and the variation. The control is the present state of your asset, whether it's your mobile application or your email newsletter or your website or your whatever that might be. That is the current state of what it looks like at the moment, right? And in this case, the current state, the control state that we had right now was the meat and the wine, right? Now, Daniel here was now introducing a variation, right? And this, some other people call it treatment, but yeah, the variation here was okay, let's have pulse, and have pulse also means vegetables. Let's have vegetables and water, right? So period of 10 days, test this. These guys here will have meat and wine. These guys here will have pulse and water. So you can see what happened there. It divided that into 2 user groups, right? The meat, pork, water guys, and the vegetables, vegetarian guys, right? For a period of 10 days, right? Now, so the whole idea was that at the end of this 10 days, we want to see what the impact of these two would be, right? Then the fourth thing, right, was now the next thing, number 4. It says here now that then Daniel said, let the countenances be looked upon, and the countenance of the children that eat the portion of the king's meat, and thou seest, deal with that servant. So he was saying here that, okay, so at the end of the 10 days, now, what we are measuring against, how we define success, is that the outlook of these 2 user groups, right? Whoever looks more fatter, more thicker, like they just came back from Jan, as compared to somebody who was in Nigeria for 3 weeks. You know, the countenance of how they look on the outside will determine which group, you know, which variation was a success, right? So very, very importantly, it's very important that you set the goal, you set your success metrics, you know, from the very beginning. How exactly do we define success? You know, if, for example, for you, success is defined as revenue per visitor, you know, that is what you're going to be measuring against, right? So it defines here the success metrics here as the countenance, the physical outlook after 10 days. Okay, and again, I'm not preaching. So now, it says now here in verse 15 that at the end of those 10 days, the countenance of those who ate the vegetable and water, they looked fairer and fatter in flesh than all the other children that ate the portion of the king's meat, right? So based off of, remember we said that the success metrics there was the countenance, right? That means at the end of 10 days, what they were weighing the control and the variation against was the countenance, the physical outlook, right? And obviously, what happened? The variation B was, of course, in the lead, right? So you have to decide, you know, what is the winning experience based off of the primary metrics. Like I said before, it's very important that even before you start your A/B test, you define what exactly the goal is, right? So you don't just start off and you're just, you know, doing nothing, right? Okay, then next. So then what happened, right? When Melza, the stakeholder in this case, you know, it's very amazing because, you know, this stakeholder here, Melza, was very scared to implement this change that Daniel was requiring. So what he did was that he gave Melza data that Melza could work with. And Melza, seeing the result and the outcome of that test, he felt confident enough to make that decision, you know. And what he did, he took away the portion of their meat and the wine, and he gave them pulse to drink. You can see that now what he did was that he now implemented, it took away the control and implemented the variations across the user group, right? So all of them now started eating, you know, so no more meat and pork for you, Daniel, and your friends. You can now stick with this because now I've given you enough data that you can work with confidently to make this decision, right? Now, if we go through like a recap of all those 4 things that we said right now, 1, have a primary metric that you're targeting, right? That's 1. Number 2, have clear variations that are challenging the control. Now, with A/B testing, when you hear the word A/B testing, you think about just one control and one variation. You can have, you know, multi-variants as well. So you can have one particular control and you can have, you know, multiple variants that you're working with at the same time. Now, one thing that is very, very key though is that with every asset that you are testing, stick to just one type of variable in each variant. So for example, if, for example, you were working with the landing page for your website, for example, and you felt that you wanted to probably change the color of your CTA button from blue to pink, for example, and currently it's brown. You have brown on the first on the control page, right? You're introducing another variable, another variation, which is maybe like pink, right, for the CTA button. Now the thing here is that right now that you've included like another variation that has pink, for example, on it, and maybe another variation that has like yellow on it, for example. Now on variation B and variation C, you want to try not to add another change. So for example, maybe change the headline, for example, from grow your business in a, maybe for example, grow your business in a day to changing it to like whatever that might be. But because the problem with that, when you have more than one particular test that you're running on one particular variation, the problem with that is that when, for example, you push out that test, right, you can't tell exactly which of those guys particularly brought in the conversion, right? So you want to stick to one particular, you know, change per variant and ensure that you're being consistent across board. A is your control, B is your variation, right? But B, the variation in B is the same as the variation in C, same as the variation in C in D. I hope that is clear. I hope we got that. Then 3, we have a good time period to run the test, like I said before. And then last, implement the winning changes, whatever variation brings the win when you want to bring that on board. Moving forward, I'm going to talk about the benefits of A/B testing very, very quickly. And I'm going to be using the example of Microsoft and Bing. I think we all know Microsoft, Microsoft, and Bing is a search engine for Microsoft. So a couple of years ago, Microsoft decided that they had a couple of test programs in their archive that they were running at the moment, and one of those tests involved was, one of the test programs that they had was something that was actually very, very simple and very quick to implement. But the product manager felt that, deprioritize that particular test because it felt like we have so many other things, for example, so many other things in our backlog to run. Let's leave that to later. Then what happened was that a particular developer, who came on board later on, came and saw that, this particular test had been deprioritized for like 6 months. I feel like let's test this out. So he pushed out and tested that particular program, and it was actually a very, very simple, small fix, change that he made. And what happened was that in a couple of hours, they saw that their numbers were beginning to rise abnormally, and the other guys in the team were wondering out what exactly is happening, like why are these numbers skyrocketing, like where is this coming from? And then, but in actual sense, it was actually not something random that happened. It was because of this change that was pushed, and because of that, they saw about a conversion of 12%. That even brought in about $100 million in revenue every year for them. And it's very funny that the littlest of things sometimes make the biggest of impact. And one of the things about A/B testing that you have to be very patient. If you were to make a little change today and you feel like you're not seeing any results, you have to keep iterating, until you find out what exactly clicks. And I'm going to use the example of social media, for example. For people who are social media managers, for example, and you're running ads on the social media platforms, you might notice that sometimes you push a particular ad to a particular and when you're running ads on social media, you have to set the location, select the keywords, put your target audience, the age, their likes, their interest base, all of that. You might say that you might push that, for example, and after like maybe you run that test, for example, for 5 days, you realize that you feel like maybe you pushed a particular picture, and you push it maybe to you push that particular picture maybe to London, for example, London, UK, and you realize that maybe after a week, you only had like 5 profile visits, 10 likes, and you wonder what was happening. And then you tweak your metrics again. I said, okay, let's use the same image again, and let's try probably another different location, or another different location for the same image. And you realize that after pushing your ad, and once Instagram or Facebook has already approved, like under 1 hour, you're hitting likes and follows like what time. I wanted what happened? Sometimes it might take longer, for example, for you to begin to see your results. But if you're able to just stay with it and be consistent, you're able to say, okay, this is actually what works. And at that point where you find what works, you take away the control and begin to implement the variation. Just moving on. Some of the benefits of A/B testing is the increase of revenue and conversions. I said in the case of Bing and Microsoft just right now, they saw an increase in revenue and conversions, because right now the whole goal of A/B testing that you're testing, you're trying to understand the user behavior, what makes them tick, and definitely helps increase revenue and conversions. Also, especially like I said before, if you're working in a very agile team, it helps with iterations, right? Because you're testing constantly, you're able to know, you lose quickly, you gain quickly, and you move. You're also able to know what works. You're not just painting your mobile application and aside from your brand colors. You're not just making certain decisions just because or you have data backing that decision, and that really helps with productivity. Then, and this also, and like I said before, another amazing thing about A/B testing, because you're working with actual users, and it's because it's actual users who are not even aware that you're actually running a test. You're having like unbiased views that actually show you a true reflection of the behavior of your users. And also, very importantly, it helps drive decision making. Like the story we gave at the other time, Melsa was able to have enough data that drove that decision to, okay, take away these, finally take away these meat, for example, and just give them vegetables going forward. I'm good with that. Just helps give that level of confidence. So now, a question you might be asking is, okay, where exactly do I A/B test? Do A/B tests work only for websites, or do they only work for social media platforms? Like, where exactly can actually apply or use A/B testing? So you can use A/B testing for literally almost anything. So it can be for website experiences, for your homepage, your landing page, your product page, for example. You might decide to, let's say you have an e-commerce platform, for example, like I have an e-commerce platform working on currently in my company. For example, with our product page, for example, we might decide that, okay, let's move our wish list from this particular position to this particular position for a certain reason. Maybe because we know that the items that are priced, particularly in this particular section, are things that are particularly pricey, and because of our target audience, we know that most likely they may not have the purchasing power to get a particular item. So let's put the wish list, closer to this particular area, such that even if they can't make that purchase now, they have the option of putting that in a wish list, right now, and come back to that later. You can use that for conversion flows, for signups, for example. You can test your signups as well, your checkouts. You can also use that for paid advertising. I was using an example of social media, for example. You can use that for example, the headlines, the catchphrases you use for your headlines, for your advertising, the titles, the images, the thumbnails, literally anything. You can also use, even as a UX designer, UI UX designer, for example, you can use your mobile. You can use A/B testing for your mobile application to find exactly what triggers what for a particular user group. Use that for marketing campaigns, for emails, literally any visitor touch point. I think particularly with emails and newsletters, where I think sometimes with emails and newsletters, it can be like, I feel like that's one of the areas where you have to do a lot of pushing, a lot of you have to have a lot of patience, find actually what works, such that you're not having users who get your emails but just list your email address as spam, or they just don't open at all. In fact, they open but they don't even click on the button to get to your website, for example. So you can test out different templates, for example, move certain items in different areas. And somehow close to the end of this session, we're going to have like a practical session where we actually try out in groups, changes, to we'll try out A/B testing practically. Anyway, that's what I'm trying to say. So next, what to A/B test? I think somebody mentioned it at the very beginning as something that they're looking out for. You might ask the question, okay, for my mobile application, for example, or for my email newsletters, or for certain user groups that I'm focusing at the moment, what exactly should I test for? And it's not just about content. You don't have to test content alone. And I'm just going to even just skip number one. I'll go to number two and come back to number one. You can also test business models, for example. For example, you want to see what happens if for your control, you have shipping is not free, for example, at checkout, but you said that, okay, for this other user group, let's try out what happens if, for example, we begin to offer free shipping. Will that increase our revenue by user? Will our visitor revenue by each visitor, will that increase per time? So you want to test that out. For example, what would free shipping look like if we tweak this? For example, what if we bring in some kind of subscription model, for example, where for the first 3 months, for example, just like what Apple does, where Apple allows you for the first 3 months, you have like your subscription is free, you don't pay anything. But from month 4, for example, you begin to pay. So you can tell, okay, let's push this in 2 ways. Let's see what happens when we begin to include a subscription model. For example, what is the response of user going to be like? For example, you also want to try out maybe product bundling. Or what happens, for example, what happens if you sell this product as a standalone? And what happens when you begin to bundle that product to other products, and you, for example, a particular product is priced at $10, another product is priced by $15, and the other one by $30. What happens if you bring these three together and make it one bundle, and we sell it, for example, at instead of selling it for $55, we sell it for maybe $50? What happens? Would users particularly begin to make more purchases of those bundles than these standalone products? Those are still variations to look at. Back to the first one, you want to try out pricing. What happens if I price my products as $2.99, and what happens if I price as $3? I tell you that kind of change can be very, very significant, because the way the mind works sometimes. When you see $2.99, for example, please, who is painting on my screen? I see that someone is painted on my screen. So what happens? What happens if for example, you price that product as $2.99 and the other price as $3? You can also do that testing, that measuring. You can. There was this example of I'll give an example later on. You can also look at you can also test backend functionality and algorithms. What happens if maybe on the website, for example, you offer certain you show certain products to certain user groups because maybe they are younger or they are older? What is the response like of that's going to be like? You can test out new products and services as well, right? Okay, then let me just move forward quickly. Now, the question is, how exactly do we A/B test, right? Now, the very first thing to do would be to get a testing tool, and there are a number of testing tools out there that we can use. I won't be able to deep dive into how these tools work in this particular session, because that was actually going to be very, very integral. Maybe we can have a session for that, depending on what Treford says. But get a testing tool. Number 2, define what your primary success metrics is. Very, very important. Whether it's you want to increase your weekly active users, or or your MRR, or your revenue by visitor, or your conversion rate on whatever it is, you have to define from the start what exactly your success metrics is. Then next thing to do is to decide what question exactly you want to test, right? What question exactly you want to test. And if we go back to that scenario I gave in the beginning about the whole meals thing, for example, the question that was tested was that what happens if we feed these guys? What happens if we take away meat and drink from them, and we actually give them something else? What is going to be the result of that? And then create variations based on the questions to be tested. Okay, what happens if we take away meat and drink to them? Now let's introduce variations instead of having introduce variations based off of the questions that you've asked, and be clear about what variations are. And one thing you want to do from the start is that you want to determine that, okay, if, for example, we're going to introduce variation A. Now, what happens if, for example, variation A wins, it comes out as the one that drives conversion based off of the metrics? Let's say in this case, for example, if we were to introduce, maybe, let me give this example, for example. Let's talk about maybe like a landing page for a website, for example, an e-commerce site, for example, and maybe on the top, I have my carousel that shows products that are being slide from side to side. And the next I have my product categories, and next I have items per category. And then I want to introduce a variation where I include a carousel that talks about recommendations for you, right? Now, what happens if, I think about it, what happens if I bring in this recommendations tab, for example? What would be what would be if, for example, these recommendations were to drive more conversions than, it's not being there. Yeah. So if, for example, I were to bring in a recommendations tab recommended for you onto my landing page, what would that, all they really want to see is just go to the search bar and find something particular. And if that is the case, then do you want to begin to bring in a lot of personalization into the system? So you can see that you have to understand what is going to be the impact. What would this mean if you introduce this kind of variance? Know that from the very beginning. Then go on to create the variation. Now, once you create the variation, I think I'm running out of time. You have to measure and activate, test out the influence of that variance, for example, on your success metrics. Then analyze your results. Once you're done analyzing your results, if, for example, you see that with variance B and with variance A and the control, there was only probably like a 0.2% change. Maybe it could tell you that probably that particular variance that you introduced has little or no impact on your success metrics. And that, for example, we said that, okay, let's try something else, instead of doing this, because we see that this really has like a low impact on the overall metrics and the goals that we actually want to with. Then what you have to do is to document your learning points, and then reiterate. Okay, so I want to just show because it's hard to do a proper testing here. I'm just going to share my screen to just show just a very, very, very short, it's a minute video about a real life example of an A/B testing that was done and results that were brought about. Let me just stop share my screen. I really don't know if I'll be able to share my video. But let me see. Sorry guys, just a second. Okay. Share this very quickly. Okay, please can you let me know if you can hear once I press play? Can we hear this, everybody? Hey, did you hear that?
No. Okay, so you will have to reshare.
Have to reshare, okay.
Okay, so now by the time you are resharing the screen, at the lower part of the screen, you're going to see optimize for screen clip, optimize for video clip. Like on the share menu where you have your whiteboard and all the different windows. Click on the reshare button.
All right, let me cancel share and share again.
Let's also click the share button now.
Okay, then I will share advanced
sharing.
Okay,
you see on the lower ribbon, the lowest ribbon, optimize for video clip and share sound. Click on both of them.
Okay.
Then share the video.
Right, okay. Awesome. Can we see my screen? It's a really short one. I can always rewind if you don't catch everything. Somebody in the waiting room. Okay.
But that is still, the test results and learning are still implemented on their site today. So let me show you what that looks like. So this was the control. As you can see, just the regular homepage, they had some products they were showing. They had a few sub-components, and then this was the bottom of their page down here. They had a few items down here. In the variation, and I'll show you these side by side so you can see the difference too. In the variation, we had a simple recommendation zone on their homepage. The business question was, how does adding recommendations to the homepage impact visitors, revenue, and their business? Their main success metric was revenue per visitor. So that's all we did. It was a simple test. We didn't do a lot of variations here because we want to test the model itself. So these are the two variations side by side. You can see that the control and the homepage and the variation are exactly the same. The only difference is the recommendation zone insert in between the last couple components of the page. And again, we've already talked about this 13% lift in revenue, which led to about $3 million in annualized income or revenue for Under Armour. This was a huge gain and an experience that they still do today. In fact, I'll show you that right now. Let me just go to underarmour.com. And here's their homepage. You can see the homepage has changed a lot. Hopefully they've done lots of testing since then. But as you come to the bottom of the page, you can see a similar recommended product zone. Now, I haven't shopped at Under Armour in a while, and that's why this is recommended. They must have like a most popular product algorithm going now. But this test was so successful, it's something they still do on their site today. From this example, you can see there's a huge potential for doing A/B testing the right way. It can impact your bottom line. It can make you more money. It can bring you new clients, customers. It can help you improve your business and your business models and your strategies. Everyone should be doing A/B testing. Now I want to hear from you. In the comments below, if you can let me know why you want to do A/B testing, or what, if you're already doing A/B testing, what is your favorite part about doing A/B?
Okay. Right. So just back onto what we're talking about. So what he did there, I don't know if everybody can still hear me. What he did there was he was showing two case scenarios where he had the control, which was what was existing and what was currently being implemented by the company. Favor, can you just let me know if you can hear me? I'll be closing up very quickly.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Where he had the control, which was the current state of that particular application, and then they introduced, and that was particularly why I used the exact example, so that when I brought it up, it would like resonate a bit more. They included some level of personalization, and because of that, you know, they saw conversion of 40%. Honestly, conversion of 40% is massive. Even 2% is great, to be honest, because sometimes it takes a lot of testing to really begin to see the results that you want to see. But anyway, they did that, and because of that, just like you said, when you find out what works, begin to implement that. You know, until date right now, they've stuck with that control. Of course. Oh gosh. So the fact that, you know, they had brought that in and they had seen revenue increase over time. Of course, that would not mean that they'll sit down, fold their hands, and not test anything anymore. There are other aspects based off of their success metrics. Remember that they can still go on to test other things that, you know, can definitely increase, you know, and help optimize their North Star metrics. Okay, I showed that. Do I want to cover this? Okay, so if, for example, someone might ask, okay, how does this actually work practically? And this is just a very, very short, based off of, because I was talking about e-commerce and landing pages, I'll just talk about this very briefly about how this can be done practically, where you have to conduct an A/B test for a landing page, for example. So you have one URL, right? And then that URL is your control URL. And then your developers generate like two other versions or one other version of that same URL. And what you now do is that you have like a split test, right? Where certain visitors to that site will see only a particular version and other visitors will see another version. But the key here is to set a cookie that ensures that, you know, what this visitor sees, if he were to return back to that particular page, he will see the same thing for the period of that testing, right? Remember we said that it's going to be like a time period for that testing. So for the period of that testing, it's going to see the exact same thing, you know, for that time. And then what happens then is that you record the number of people who viewed each variation. And from that, you determine like who took, you know, the intended action, you know, how many people clicked through, for example, you know, and then you can also do an analysis. You know, I don't know, it depends on your how much of data you can analyze, or if you have a data analyst who is already on board. One thing that I would like to say right here and though is that as a product manager, I think we have a lot of product managers here. This is not a test you want to run in isolation with only yourself and maybe your development team. It's always best to bring in your data analyst from the onset, you know, from the very beginning. It's not a case of when you're done, you now pass on your data so that, okay, now go analyze data. No, it's best to bring in your analyst in the beginning so that it can offer you insights. You can define what your success metrics are, determine, for example, what variants you want to introduce, and, you know, understand what the results are going to be once, you know, a variance loses or a variance wins, right? Just very quickly, I think what I would need us to do very quickly would be that I want us to just break out into groups, and it's just going to be a very short conversation, just to really test our understanding. And just because also we have people who are from different spheres of industries amongst us, who also can also add knowledge that you may not even be aware of. So I want us to just split into different groups, and I want you to look for like an in-life products. And by in-life products, a product that's also already live. Okay. So people are in the waiting room. Okay. And look for in-life products. Could be for other an existing website, or could be a mobile application, for example, could be a newsletter, anything particularly. It could even be, and remember I said at the beginning that it's not just content that you're able to test, do A/B testing on. You can do testing on your pricing, on your business model, on your literally anything. So I want us to just break into like groups, right? Then what you do is just from any of these 4 or any other thing that you might want to test out, look for like an existing product that's already in the market, right? And I know that of course their own success metrics are different, definitely, but come up with a success metrics for that. So for example, maybe for Uber, for example, I think Uber's North Star metric is I think the number of rides taken per week, or I think Airbnb is number of nights booked per week. So whatever your success metric is, define your success metric, from the onset, and decide, okay, what exactly do you want to test, based off of what you want to test, create your variations, right? And by variations, I'm not asking you to draw anything. By variations, I mean that, okay, we want to probably introduce, maybe, for example, this particular application, maybe like Canva, for example, currently has a freemium model, for example. Want to introduce, for example, they already have a premium model. Maybe want to introduce maybe a freemium and premium model, where, for example, for the first 3 months, don't pay anything, whatever that might be. Create variations for that, right? We're not testing practically, but I just want to see if we understand the principle of things that are very important, that are required before you do a test. Then determine that, okay, if, for example, this particular variation was to win, if, for example, maybe a fully freemium model were to win, for example, what would that mean? Would that mean that our target market are people that are not actually, they don't actually want to spend, the people that don't like to spend money, what exactly? And you can create more than one variation. It can be 2, it can be 3. Determine that what would be the learning point if this particular variant were to win. And then when we're done, we'll just come back and have like a quick discussion about it, and then we'll be able to close. Yeah.
Right. So to recap, let's just have one more recap on. Did we all get the prompts, like what we are supposed to discuss about? Please let me know in the chats, or you can unmute yourself to. Did you get what we are supposed to discuss about before I open the breakout rooms? A yes in the chats, or
if you need to clarify something, I can do clarification now. I can also take a screenshot before you break out. So yeah.
Okay, Johnson says he got it.
Oh, awesome! Thank you, Johnson.
I want one more person to let me know if they got it. Okay, yes. Toby said she didn't get it. Can we go again?
Okay, so what I need us to do would be, so for any in-life product, right? I particularly want us to use an in-life product so that everybody can see at a glance what that product is like at the moment, right? We talked about where we have a control. The control is the current status of that particular product, right? So whether it is a mobile application, for example, or a web application, a landing page, an email newsletter, whatever that might be, select one for an in-life product, right? And from your own team, determine what's the success. Pick out your North Star metrics, your key success metric for that particular product, whether it's for example, weekly active users, or revenue by visitors, or number of rides booked per week. Just choose what's defined as success, for example. Then decide, okay, what question do you want to test? For example, what happens if we take out this, or what happens if we introduce this? Then based off of the questions to be tested, list out variations. So this is our control. Now list out now that based off of the question you've asked yourself, list out variations for each of those, for each of the controls. Okay, for example, I want to change the TTA button from white to red because I feel like probably I want to see what happens if I put red instead. Maybe red would be a better draw. So, put variations. Or what happens if, for example, we change from a premium model to a freemium model? What would happen? Create variations for that, one or more. Then determine what will happen. What would the learning points, for example, if a particular variation were to win? Yeah. I don't know, is it clear now?
Let's know via the chats if it's okay. Yes, she said yes.
Oh,
all right
sweet.
then.
Thank you.
All right then. So how many minutes do you want us to use in the breakout room?
So I think what's the time now? I would like to give us like about 10 minutes because I'm sure that we'll have to agree on what product we want to do this assessment on. So 10 minutes is good.
Okay, 10 minutes. 10
Yeah.
minutes then. All right. I'm just going to create 2 rooms so we can have a lot of people engage and very interesting conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Favor.
And the Zoom rooms are open. So you could just go from room to room to check out. Okay, yes, it's open. We got 10 minutes.
Hi.
Hello, how was the breakout room discussion? Any takers?
Okay. So I think we had like 2 rooms. So I don't know who will be speaking or presenting for the first group. 1, 2 people.
I don't think room 1 did much because I joined in briefly. So, but I think I joined in briefly for room 2, and I think room 2 quite did a lot. So maybe room 2 would like to go.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to go ahead with the plan?
Yes,
we had. All right, awesome. Yeah, so I would say we took an hypothetical approach towards this, right? So we are looking at a product, an e-commerce B2C startup. Eventually, we decided on trying to look at Jumia, for instance, as the case study.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So for the first one, sorry, I'm trying to quickly open up the screenshot to see the things. Okay, yeah. So the primary success metrics. Yes. So we are looking at we're actually
share your screen. Do you have anything to share? Since you have a screenshot, maybe a good everybody can see that. Do you?
No, I don't. I mean, the time was too short to actually
Oh,
put
okay,
anything
okay,
on.
okay. Okay, that's fine.
I don't have things on paper. Yeah. So we will for the first one, the primary success metrics, right? So we have the number of monthly orders, basically number of monthly orders. And then secondly, we have the number of shoppers to cart. And the reason why we have this, right? Number of shoppers to cart basically is like the conversion from the number of shoppers to the number of people shoppers who clicked on an item to buy, then clicked on add to cart. So yeah, what we reasoned here was that the question, that's number 2 now. The idea or the question to be tested was, we realized from data that there is a huge drop off from shoppers who are clicking on the product to those who are actually adding to carts, which means that revenue is reducing. These people are not buying essentially. They're only clicking on the item, but they are not adding to carts. So we now felt, okay, so we deep dived into data. Again, this is hypothetical. We deep dived into data, and then we realized that the problem was that there was sold out sold out was written on many of these products, on many of these products pages, right, where these buyers wanted to click on, right? And we realized from the back office that, it was a problem with the items being available from our merchants. So we were not like, okay, what can we do? How can we, increase conversion of these users? We don't want to lose them. We want them to come back to buy this product, because we've already made an agreement with our merchants that, once an item is sold out, the item would be available within, let's say, 10 days once it's sold out. So based on these agreements now, we are looking at variants that we can test on the product page to increase conversion so that we don't lose these buyers, right? These shoppers rather. So what we are looking to test here, the variants that we now came up with, is something on the product page, on that item page after the users click, that shows, instead of showing sold out, what we do is we remove sold out, right? So what we put instead is we put more like a box that says these products will be available in X number of days. Get notified with our coupon code to get 2% off. Now, so basically, what the test, our hypothesis for this test, right, is that these users would click on this on that button, and then, instead of us losing them, these people go to a certain cohort where we can now, when the product is now available, we can now send them push notifications, in-app notifications, and things like that to get them back to, add to the add to cart page where they eventually buy the product. So what we want to test here is that variant against the control variant, which is, having this sold out there originally. Yeah, so that would be, so what would, for the number 4 now, determine what would you learn if any variation wins. So what I would imagine is that our variation, the single variation that we have created here, which is to create that button, or that, yes. So I would imagine that this would increase the conversion rate. A number of people would click on that, and then we would have their lead stored, such that when the item is now available, we now send them, we drive them back to the to cart page, and they convert, as opposed to the control group, which still has the sold out thing, who are currently low in conversion rates. So what we learn ultimately is that, that variant works, it drives more conversion, basically. So that was what we wanted to come up with. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Absolutely brilliant. And I think another thing that most likely, if that particular variant were to work, I think one thing you might also learn would be that in the minds of the users, somehow seeing that sold out button might translate to them as this particular item is unavailable and it's not coming back. But seeing that what you have put there, saying that it's going to be available in a couple of days, do XYZ to get 2% off, that shows that probably the user knows for sure that this item I'm going to be able to get this item back, and it's built some level of expectation. So I think it's very, very brilliant what you did. Very, very brilliant. Thank you very much. And I would have loved to hear from group 2, just that they haven't given anything. I'd love to also hear something different from even the typical e-commerce, because A/B testing is not just restricted to A/B testing. It would have been great if we had like UX designers here that could give us feedbacks even from that point of view. I don't know, Toby, if Adeju is here, I think she's in health insurance. It would have been good to hear also from that for a non-e-commerce platform, maybe a product, maybe like a smart medical telemedicine application, for example, what you think you might want to do differently. But thank you very much, Joss. Like that, I really love that. And I think that one thing we can take off from here when we leave would be to think about currently, okay, what exactly isn't working at the moment? Of course, defining exactly what it is, the goal, the metrics really is, what is not working, what can we do differently, and how can we test that across multiple users. Another beautiful thing about A/B testing that you don't need to have only one particular variant, right? You can run many variants at the same time, even against your control. Thank you very much, Johnson. I love that. Does any other person here want to probably present something or has like an example they have tried personally in their own organization that worked? Anybody?
Yeah, I think I like to say things because I remember it's Favor, yeah.
Hi, Favor, yes.
Okay, so basically so for me it was a landing page for a particular one of Treford's boot camp. If I remember, it was a product marketing boot camp. The first cohort. So we had a landing page, and the landing page brought in, and we had like marketing partners and everything. Like, yeah, it was bringing a lot of registrations, but the primary success metric was conversion. Like, convert these leads that were registering to actually people who paid. You get. So after doing follow-up calls to quite a number of people who registered, I noticed that many of them just ended up registering without knowing that it was a paid, it was actually a paid training. And so hence I had to, I sat down with the designer, we redesigned the page, the outlook of the page, so that by the time you're clicking the registration button, you actually know that you're clicking for a paid event. And that was like, we redefined the call to action. The whole structure of the landing page had to change, basically from top down, from all of the copy and everything had to change. Like changing the position of where the button was closer to where the price for, or the fee, the fee for the training was. So the registration button was closer to the fee for the boot camp as well. And yes, so, and I think there was a 33% increase in the number of payments conversion after that. So it was tracked, and it was one of the interesting things. So I don't think it is as much as A/B testing as you've defined it, such that there's one that is controlled, there's another one, where people will see two different landing pages all at the same time, but maybe just coming in from very different browsers. But I think in a form it was like an A/B testing stuff, because I had like one page first, then after changing a page based on some observations and then based on some data, we converted more. So yeah, it might not necessarily be the most basic definition of A/B testing, but yeah, I hope that passes for A/B testing.
Yes, it does pass for A/B testing. It does. Thank you.
Sorry, Ebun.
I think Toby has a hand
question
up.
actually.
Okay, Joe.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. Let's.
So, can I speak?
Yes. I think I'm hearing two voices.
Let Toby go first. She has a hand up first.
Okay. Toby can go on.
Right. So speaking of stuff that has happened at work, this is something where I haven't tested for. It's stuff where like designing and trying to work on. So this is I can't send images in this chat. Okay. An issue we have is that sometimes we get requests from customer care saying someone called them that they wanted to buy one plan for 3 months, right? But then they ended up buying 3 plans, 1 month each. And so the way the website is, right before you select, right before you pay, the first thing you see is a bar that states the payment frequency. So there's monthly, quarterly, and annually. By default, it's on monthly. It's just like a bar at the top, right? And in the third bar, where you input the number, we literally say how many people do you want to buy for. But somehow people are not seeing or are skipping the payment frequency selector. Basically, we haven't highlighted it enough, like, hey, select your payment frequency. So that is happening. And then when in the place where we literally say how many people do you want to buy for, somehow they still end up putting 3, right? And so it's something that's been going for like months. So we're having a so it's one of the projects that I'm working on, like trying to do some redesign to solve some of those things. And when I'm done, I would like to just do some testing based on what we've come up with right now to just see if it solves the problem. Because I keep looking at the design and I can't figure out how anybody
was looking at that. Yeah.
I already did see it, but I think it would be great. In that case, it would be great to do the A/B test to see if people are going to click on different things now, or if we're still going to be having some issues.
I'm super glad that you mentioned that, Toby, because it's funny that when you are sitting in the seat of either a product manager, a developer, anybody in the tech team, many times there are ways that you'd expect the user to behave. And many times when you see a deviation from that behavior, it doesn't really make sense. And sometimes it's funny that when you actually run the test, sometimes even the most ridiculous of things actually give you the most results, So it'd be fantastic if you do that. Like I said before, if you have a written analyst, on the board, it'd be good to engage them from the beginning. I know that one of the things that really work well with A/B testing and testing in general are heat maps. With heat maps, you're able to see the various touch points of your user journey, which areas that's clicking the most, and if, for example, you're seeing that some areas particularly are not getting so many interactions, it's good to look specifically into those, especially if those points you think are things that would actually drive conversion. With your heat maps, you're able to see that, okay, we need to work on this. Let's particularly, create variants for this particular one and see. I'm actually very excited to see what you come up with and what your results would be. Also, Google Analytics is also really good to work with for. I'm sure we all have that. You're able to track your bounce rate and all the like. See, how, for example, how many minutes, for example, each user spends on your website. I did that for one of my businesses, and I was so shocked because I feel like in my mind that this page is so catchy. Like the images are bright, they're colorful, everything. And I realized for our China audience, for example, they were spending about 10 seconds on the page and they were going off. And in my head, I could not understand why. That kind of thing. I want to try some kind of A/B testing to see, okay, maybe certain things appeal to that audience differently. Sorry, Johnson, you can go on because I think we're already out of time. Hi, Johnson. I think Johnson wanted to say something.
Just Juwon, I guess Juwon.
Oh, Juwon. Okay, hi, Juwon. You can go on, please.
All right, thanks, Ebun. It's actually a question, right? I wanted to ask what's, because to me now it's sounding like because there's something I call iterative development in my head, and I want to know how it links to this A/B testing. Because I would have thought A/B testing is just like you having like these two different initiatives you want to test against each other.
Mm-hmm.
But what's for example, what Favor said earlier sound like, okay, you just notice that something is not going well and you want to see what's responsible for that, and you improve on that. So that's what I meant when I said iterative development, right? So what's the difference between these two? Actually?
Okay, great. And I actually love that you actually mentioned that, because if you piggyback to what Favor mentioned that they did like an entire overhaul of their page, right? And then they pushed it. Many times
that's not A/B testing then.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So that in itself, like the concept of doing things differently to test user behavior, that is some level of testing. But A/B testing itself, if for example, I'm really glad you asked this question, because with an entire overhaul, because the idea of A/B testing is that you're making changes, and with every change, you're seeing the effect of that change on your success metrics. And in the case where you have like an overhaul of the entire page, it is hard to tell what exactly is driving conversion, right? So with A/B testing, it's more like you have of course what as it is what we have at the moment, which is the control, right? But then you're having your variance B, for example, with only one change, variance C with a change as well, still on the same variable, the variant D, so that with that, you're saying that, okay, for example, when I now push this test out to the public and I have my users running this test with me and for me, I can see that, okay, out of B, C, and D, and E, which of these, actually pulled the highest of conversion. So yes, you're absolutely right, because definitely, yeah, you're absolutely right. A/B testing is data driven. You're tracking changes per variable, and it's measured against your success metrics. Brilliant question. Thank you very much, Jomo. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
I don't know if you have any other questions, because we're supposed to end in a few minutes, and I think I just want to touch on one other thing before we go in. And if you have any other questions, you can come in. So a couple of testing tools that we can try out. I think two of the most popular are like Optimizely and VWO. Please, if you use something else and works for you, please let us know. Let me know so we can, we can try those out as well. Sorry, I talk very fast. I think VWO particularly has like a free trial. So if, for example, maybe over the weekend or during the week when you're not doing PM work, you could just, sit down VWO particularly, start the free trial, have run split testing, run multivariant testing, and just play around with it as you get yourself familiar, because we don't have much time to really deep dive into any of these tools. As you spend time with seeing how these tools work, you're able to think broadly into your own products and say, okay, let's try this out. Let's try this out. Let's see what works, and how we can iterate quickly and reach our goals. So I'll suggest Optimizely and VWO. You can actually start a free trial with any of them. They're really, really good softwares to use. And but I think very, very importantly is understanding the principles and how A/B testing works, and then you can move that into your product to see how you get ample results. I don't know if you have any other questions before we close out. I think I'll take
there's a conversation in the chat. So it started with are the tools free? And somebody mentioned there's Google Optimize.
Yes, there's Google Optimize. Yes.
Then
there's
which
Google
of these
Optimize.
And then which of these two work for mobile apps?
I think if I'm right, I think you can try out I think VWO, or is it Optimizely that actually works for mobile applications?
I think it should be Optimized.
Yeah, I think one of them actually, I think it's Optimizely that actually works for, because I've seen that, yeah. So you can try out Optimizely, Khadija, yes. Yeah, Johnson says Optimizely and VWO also. Exactly. Thank you, Johnson. You can actually try those out as well. And I think a good thing to do would be that if you feel you want to connect with anybody who is here, so just rub your thoughts or have a follow-up. For example, Toby, for example, who's running tests, very soon. You could sync up with her and ask, okay, how did you do what you did? And what are the results you were able to reach? Or okay, can you give me ideas about how I can also run mine as well? Of course, industries are different, but I mean, yes, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Ebun Feyisetan. I think other people can also drop their LinkedIn handles as well, so we can connect with them. But yeah, so if there are any other questions, I think it's a wrap for me today. But thank you. I actually really enjoyed the class. Thank you for your feedbacks. I don't know if there are any other questions here.